Hello, all you beautiful souls. Thank you for joining me again today for a very special edition of Operation Tango Romeo, the Trauma Recovery Podcast for veterans, first responders, and their families. As I've said before, my long-time listeners would have heard this before. Trauma is trauma is trauma. You don't have to be a veteran or a first responder in order to experience it or be injured by it. Today on the show, I have an incredible human being that's joining me from the UK. Not my first guest from the UK, but hoping that having him on was going to open up our audience a little bit more. UK is actually my third largest audience. So hello to everybody from the UK. I have with me John Bell. John's been a busy, busy boy lately because a short while ago, Ryan Reynolds, yeah, that one, Deadpool, found out about what John was doing and he lent his celebrity to him. So went over, met him, and we're going to talk about that a little bit and how that's changed John's life and supports the work that he does. John, welcome.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you. Thank you for such a lovely introduction as well. Um, I struggle with that now. I think I had this conversation with someone earlier today when people compliment you for what you do and tell you you're an inspiration. Years ago, I'd have lapped that stuff up when I was all young and all full of ego. I'd have lapped that up. But it's as long as we're saving one person, that's makes a difference, don't it? And as I said before, it saves me every day to do what I do as well. So good to be here, Mark. Thank you for having me on your show.
Well, I appreciate you being here. And when we were chatting off air, what I didn't share with you, the mission of this show is to save lives and relieve pain by making help for PTS injuries easily accessible, with a vision of a world where the path to recovery is clear. And now you've joined me on that mission and are helping to move towards that vision by sharing with the new eyes that will come to the show because you're here.
Thank you.
And every time you share your story, every time you share your story, John, you're helping somebody else get through their story. I call it lending courage, although I didn't coin that phrase. Others have called it that, but it's lending courage. You were saying off air that you appreciated. I talked about my suicide attempt in 21, and I mentioned with you, which I don't know if I've talked about on the show, but I also had an attempt when I was about 12 or 13 years old. And by saying that, other people hear it and they go, oh, okay, well, you just said that, like, how's the weather? So, because you said that so easily, maybe I don't have to have that as my deep, dark secret, the thing that I'm hiding from the world. It's your secrets that poison you. It's the things that you don't talk about that fester and grow like a cancer. So thank you so much, John, for the work that you do and taking a horrendous tragedy and turning it into something that helps others. You're a hell of a man
Thank
for
you,
it.
Mark. And like I said earlier, thank you for sharing those sort of thoughts and those attempts that you said as well. It's I believe there's not one person on the planet myself that isn't vulnerable to a situational change where they can have those similar thought processes, and by not having any awareness of that, I think you're going to struggle to have coping mechanisms to also deal with those as well. It's about not sort of lying to yourself and admitting who you are, taking accountability and learning more about yourself and your own emotions for me now. And what I do helps me, Mark. I'm not going to lie. What I do helps me be a better person. So if I look for the good inside myself, then I naturally find it in other people as well. It's there for all of us, and I believe this is what every sort of type of religion tries to say, isn't it? To develop that peace with yourself and to be able to find that after such a loss, losing my son Jake as well. Uh, and obviously we're talking about the word suicide. It's such a complex word. You asked me if there's any areas you shouldn't go. If I'm honest with you, Mark, don't worry about holding back or asking me anything. I can talk about absolutely anything, but I'll talk from my perspective on my story. I've got other young children and things like that, which I mentioned earlier, and everybody grieves differently, and we have to respect that, don't we? We respect that. It's about staying safe, isn't it? It's about staying safe and understanding yourself and being the best version of you can be. And if that inspires, that's fantastic. If it saves one life, if it saves two lives, absolutely amazing. I think we're all we could be more than what we suffer, which I said earlier as well in Southline. I think we can all be bigger than our suffering and our traumas. I really do. We could let them define us in such a negative way, and you hear so often it's okay not to be okay, and I don't disagree that the fantastic quotes. Obviously, we're going to get sad occasionally. It's normal. It's normal. That is going to happen, but I don't think we should sit and sort of wallow in that though. It's like, what do we do to combat this? What coping mechanisms are we going to develop? And I think to develop basic sort of principles of self worth, self love, and compassion for yourself. Do you know what I mean? I think that's so important. You naturally get it for other people then as well.
It's okay to not be okay. And it occurs to me as you say that it's also okay to
Yeah.
be
Mm.
okay. A lot of folks I've seen, and even with myself, that when something horrendous happens to someone else that's close to us, that we feel guilt for feeling
Mm.
okay. It's like, oh, I shouldn't feel okay. I should still feel horrible because of this event. And no, it's okay to be okay. The person that the horrible event happened to, what would
Mm.
they want for you? Would they want you to suffer because of what happened to them
Exactly.
in
Uh,
perpetuity? No, no, they would want you to be okay. So the grieving process, it's necessary, you know, uh, but to make that as brief as possible is okay. You don't have to languish for years and
no,
years and
not at all.
years.
Not at all. Uh, it's different. I mean, it's different for everybody, isn't it? The grief is different. We all deal with things differently, and that's okay. Do you know what I mean? If that helps you, what you're doing helps you. That's the bigger picture, isn't it? If it helps you in dealing with your grief, but it's just I don't. It's a wasted life again, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? You've lost somebody to suicide, to cancer,
Mm.
whatever illness or thing that's out there takes your lost loved one from you. They wouldn't want us. I mean, these aren't the things you want to hear when it's raw, though, Mark. You know what I mean? When it's just happened, you've just lost someone. It's like
No,
the
no,
cloud. Every cloud has a silver lining, sort of phrases. You don't want to hear that sort of stuff. Do you know what I mean? So my son died for a reason. It's an individual journey, and it's finding what path you need to go on. I mean, what I do, you just praising me on what I do now, and some of the public will be aware of some of the challenges I've done, and dressing as Deadpool, carrying a bathtub up and down mountains, a real bathtub, and things, and ridiculous sort of extreme hiking and challenges, and covering loads of mileage, but what I do comes from a place of darkness which will be. I'll speak quite a lot about. I'm just in process of getting ready for writing a book. I've just sort of brought there. I've finally settled on a name for that book called Resilient Souls. For myself, that's my son and my soul sort of coming together. He lives on through me and everything that I do. All our lost loved ones live on in our heart. I truly believe that our memories, our minds. You've got to want to enjoy living in your own head. That's the biggest thing. If you enjoy living in your own head, you're going to be in your own head for the rest of your life. Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying don't rely on other people or anything like that, but you've got to understand yourself. It's the best. It is the best preventative measure to suicide. It really is. When you understand yourself on a level, you can take more control of your own emotions, and you can think more clearly about how you act and how you react to other people. Don't expect other people to act in a way that suits your expectations. I don't think we should expect from each other. I think they're the basics. They should be the basics we should be looking at. We expect from each other when someone doesn't do what we want them to. Is that not one of the most manipulative behaviors, really, when you think about it? I don't think people realize they're doing this, to be fair, because I think we develop, I think we can so easily, through our own traumas, our own learned behaviors through life, we develop defense mechanisms, don't we? We've all got different perceptions, haven't we? Do you know what I mean? And develop these defense mechanisms inside us. And I don't think most people realize they're being unkind sometimes. Do you know what I mean? So that's why the resilience is so important. It really is.
another idea for suicide prevention, and it's something I wanted to work into our conversation, is purpose. So you turned an incredible trauma into something with purpose. And a lot of people, as I have with this show, So a lot of folks, they try to distract themselves with pleasure, with entertainment, whether it be watching TV or video games or hopefully something outdoors. It doesn't matter if it's water skiing or what. But if all of your focus is on entertainment as opposed to something with purpose, you're going to find limited results, and you're going
Mhm.
to find that that cup runs dry pretty quick. But with purpose, purpose means you're serving somebody else.
Yeah,
It's not just your own. Um, it's just not your own coping mechanism. Now, living with purpose is also a coping mechanism, but it's a healing mechanism as well. Coping and healing are not the same thing. Coping is getting through the day. Healing is making it so it's a lot easier to get through the day because you've bridged that gap. Purpose, serving somebody else, whether you're volunteering at a food bank, walking dogs at the local shelter, something for somebody
Mhm.
else or for something else. Fostering a pet, right? Fostering dogs to keep them out of the kill shelters and until somebody can adopt them. Anything that is for somebody else, I would suggest is probably, if it's not the number one way to avoid suicide, it's in the top three. And what are your thoughts on that?
Totally agree. Totally agree. Yeah, I could go quite deep into this if you wanted me to. To be fair, I really do agree with you on that. I reached a point.
Well, it's pretty important. I'm curious what your
Well,
thoughts are.
I personally reached a point where I made my peace with death. I planned the first year, like I planned my own death every single day, to a point I set an end game as well, which I will happily talk about. It's not much of a problem. It's part of my healing process. So I was contemplating suicide for an entire year after losing my son, and I think this was an element of walking the distance that I walked. So I thought, do you know what? I'll just walk myself to death to a certain degree. Do you know what I mean? I'll walk and walk and walk till I drop. And I was learning to be one with my own thought processes. I started going back and rewiring, going right back to being a child and questioning, doing all the what ifs, which is what you do during grief. If I'd have done this different, would my son still be here? And it's important, I think, to go through that process and visit the darkness. Not if you don't know what you're going to dig up. I would recommend seeing a therapist, definitely. Do you know what I mean? But I didn't have that luxury. I just threw myself in at the deep end and disappeared away from people and hit my darkness full on. And to a point where I enjoyed living there. I enjoyed living there, I'm in that darkness every single day. I have, well, I don't want to say I have full control over it, but I don't let it rule me anymore. I wake up in the morning and my darkness, I do not fear. I do not fear. I've made my peace with that because I made my peace with death. So I make my darkness worry about what I'm going to make that do next. Which mountain am I going to take my darkness up next? And I enjoy doing it. The harder things are, the more I can tap into things because I've surpassed the physical pain side of things. And that's not to say I work through injuries. I'm very aware of every niggle in my body when I'm doing things. I've become so self-aware. It's unreal. I started looking into Buddhism, started looking into all sorts of different ways to try and find a way to live again because couldn't take my own life. I wanted to. I wanted to be with Jake. I've made my peace and I want to be with him. If I died tomorrow, I'm okay with that. I'm perfectly fine with that. I've made my peace with a lot of things. And when you've done that, it's truly exhilarating. So but there's too much to be done here. I've got other children and I've got my family, I've got my wife, got my mother, I've got all my family and my friends and what we do now through our charity Walking for Hope. People that rely on what we're putting in place. So I think it's important that what I've learned through losing my son has taught me a lesson in what he's done. Our children should not be teaching us lessons, especially the way this has happened. That it's took me losing my son to it's such one of supposedly one of the worst tragedies in life. They say, don't they, to lose a child? And then when you throw sort of suicide into the equation, and
Absolutely.
then even then, the courts have put it officially down as an accident with Jake, which is what happens with people under 18 a lot of the time in the UK. I don't know if that's the same in America or Canada. Uh, but it's something that they do, and I think there's a number of reasons behind that because it's such a taboo subject what people are scared to death of, frightened to death of it, going that deep into that. They're not ready for that sort of level of darkness yet, and I can't fault them because I wasn't. I had to learn to live in it. I had to learn to deal with this, and we all suffer. We all suffer, Mark. We really do. Every single person on this planet suffers. When we realise that, we always think that our suffering is worse than everybody else's. So we don't validate other people's pain anymore. And that's not to say, oh, I want to sit here and listen to all your problems, you know what I mean? And just whine on and get it all off your chest and I'll absorb all that. It's not, no, you just, you know what, you just acknowledge that person. Let them speak a little bit. Let them speak a little bit and interact to actually see that person, see each other, look further than that. How many times do you sit in a conversation and you can be having a conversation and the person you can just tell they are itching for you to finish talking so they can just talk to you. Do you know what I mean? Just learn to interact, read each
Yeah.
other, look above everything
Yeah,
else.
that's listening to respond as opposed to listening
Yeah,
to
yeah.
understand.
So listening to other people and taking on and interacting, I think, is so important. And you know when you know when you've sort of, I don't want or need for anything else. I practice not having any attachments, and as a guy called Dr. Wayne Dyer said, he's absolutely amazing guy who's passed over the last
Hmm.
decade. Bless him. And he used to say, "Have a mind open to everything and be attached to nothing." And I do practice not having any attachments, and that's not to say that uh, I don't care about things. It's totally the opposite. I can care even more because I don't want or need for anything at all myself. So what I do to show others that we can be more than what we suffer, and I see other people do take from this, and they find their own ways, and they start developing self worth as well. You see that happening. Wow, I get everything I need from that. I really do. So when you say about helping other people, when you stop asking, like for instance, every morning I wake, Mark, I wake up, and I hate to say it like this because if there's people struggling out there, they think, oh, wow, how are you an advocate for mental health? When I wake up and wallow in my own self pity, I know that's a strong choice of words to use, but that is exactly what I do, and I think most of the population do this. We sit in our own self pity and feel sorry for ourselves. So I wake up every morning, and I know it's every morning because I live this daily. I don't want to face another day every single morning when I initially wake up without my son physically. I get to find him every single day in my heart, so I make my heart a nice place for him to live. So I practice loving kindness. And I feel reborn every single day. I've got my son with me coursing through my veins, and there's nothing I won't do to keep him alive through me in my memories of him and things like that. So I've got a connection and a relationship with my son on such a spiritual level that it surpasses everything. There's not one person I can't look in the eye and be afraid of them in any way for some reason because I don't know, we're so greedy as people, we're so entitled, and we're getting worse and worse with it. And I think we need to start looking at how do we deal with that type of behaviour instead of encouraging it. Do you know what I mean? And I just it's great. I love being alive now. As much as I've made my peace with death, I love being alive. And I think there's so much. If you could just whack me on a desk on an operating table, dissect me, dissect my brain, how have I managed to develop so much love and connection with my son after losing him physically and be able to put back in? Stop dealing with that self pity and sitting in it and get up. Stop saying, when's the world going to provide something for me? I've lost my son. I've done this and all that self pity. When am I going to do something for the world? When am I going to do something for the universe? Instead of when you stop asking, and taking and taking and taking, and you start to give, and that don't mean you let people treat you as a
Oh gosh,
pushover.
uh, thinking thinking about JFK.
Yeah,
Ask not what you can do for your country, but or what your country can
exactly.
do for you, but what you can do for your country. It's the same with life. Ask not what your life can do for you. Ask what you
Yeah,
can do for your life. Isn't that interesting? That works. That works in that
it just
context.
works. It
Absolutely.
works. It's natural. It does. Uh, and I get to feel like people have a lot of empathy and sympathise with me when they hear some things when I talk and things, and obviously without my son and things, and it's do you know what? I'm okay. I am really okay. Like when you said you said earlier, you said something earlier. I'm trying to think what it was now, and you was talking about something, and it made me think about a situation last night. My wife told me about a young boy that had died to cancer recently, and my response wasn't sort of. She was feeling really bad about it. She's like, it's really upset me and everything, and I have to be so careful. It's not. I'm lacking emotion. If anything, I've got more empathy and more emotion. But because I know what it feels like to lose a child, I understand, I can empathise. I live it every day. So I won't sort of, I think she expected me to get sort of really sad when she told me. I didn't know this person, and this is what we do in life. So when you lose someone so close to you, the world. One of the biggest things that you have to learn is the world does go on. The world carries on, and afterwards, and how are you going to fit into that world? You've got to find a way to fit into that world and find your new normal, haven't you? Do you know what I mean? And that can come in many forms. I mean, I've found a way to do this myself. So if you could stick me on a table and dissect me, and I'd make the ultimate sacrifice. And obviously, I've got my kids over that need me. Do you know what I mean? Stick me on a table, dig into my brain, and dissect me and find out why I've learned this after so much trauma and grief. And if that was a cure for depression, crack on, cut me open. Do you know what I mean?
Something you were saying earlier really struck me, just talking about how you've really embraced life now. And it reminds me of one of the tenets of Stoicism, which is memento mori, remember your death. And my wife says I obsess about death a fair bit. It's like, well, I do think about it every day because I think it's important. I believe with the Stoics that always, every day, remember that tomorrow's guaranteed to no one, that today might be the only day that you have. This could be it. So don't spend it on the couch, at least not often. And by acknowledging the reality that nobody wants to acknowledge, which is your days are numbered, and people go, yeah, yeah, well, of course I know I'm going to die. Okay, meditate on that for a second. But do you know? Are you living like you're going to die? Are you living like today could be your last? That's a big difference between truly accepting, oh man, life is short. And the older you get, the more obvious that gets. I lost my father about a year and a half ago, and like, let's see. So I got to about another 30 years, maybe, if I'm lucky. Okay. That's not a lot of time, because I have some pretty vivid, the war that I was in was 30 years ago. So I'm like, okay, that was 30 years ago. So in another 30 years, I'm going to be 84. Oh my God, that's really old. I don't got a lot of time, because the last 30 years went in a blink. A lot happened, but it went so fast. And the next 30 is going to go even faster. So if you live with that in mind every day, you're not going to waste time.
Yeah, it's time. I think time's one of the most precious things going, isn't it? Really, time. It's like you can give someone you love, but if you give someone your time, it's worth so much more, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? It really is. Just yeah, and we don't know. None of us know how much time we've got. This is with what you've just said there. It's a thing within sort of. I don't class myself as a Buddhist, Mark, or anything. I don't put a label on myself, if I'm honest with you. Do you know what I mean? But I do like the Buddhist sort of principles, and they talk. They do talk about impermanence. Nothing in life is permanent, and when you've lost a child, then you understand that. Do you know what I mean? Anything can be taken away from you just like that. And if you're not prepared for it, if you're not prepared how to deal with the emotions that's going to come with, you you're going to struggle. Do you know what I mean? And these things, that these curveballs are thrown at you in life, and they can get worse and worse. Sometimes they can not be as bad. Do you know what I mean? And I don't want to. I don't want to ever try and minimize anybody else's suffering or anything like that. But he is an example for you. Obviously, name's going to be kept out of it. We shouldn't minimize each other's people's suffering. So I was looking for a support group, a grief support group to go to, because I run and I facilitate a couple of groups myself. So And I wanted something for myself to go to. And I end up sort of, because of my experience of facilitating, I end up sort of falling into that sort of role there if I'm not careful. But this one in particular was a grief group, and it was more older people that was there who'd lost partners, and one person in particular had lost his wife, and he was probably, I say, around about pension age in the UK, sort of late 60s, 70. And I told my story about losing my son, how I lost him, etc. And and he turned around and said to me, "So you've got a wife to look after you still?" Oh, wow! You just said that to me. Oh, wow! Wow. I said, "Listen, I'm not going to hold back here. I'm not going to apologise, but I will be kind in what I'm about to say." And I said to him, "I said, what you've just done there is something you shouldn't do. You should not invalidate, especially at a grief support group. You shouldn't invalidate someone else's sort of suffering or anything like that." And I said to him, I said, "So let me explain something to you." I said, "What you've just said there." I said, "Yes, I've got a wife." I said, "But losing my firstborn son," I said, "torn me apart and broke me so much. Every little piece it broke, every fibre of my being it broke. And this is how bad my suffering feels to me." I said, "No disrespect to anybody." And I said, "I see so many fantastic people out there going out there raising awareness, doing these things, and amputees, people that have got like two prosthetic legs, climbing up mountains, doing things, and it's absolutely amazing. So no disrespect to anybody that's doing that." I said to him, "How I feel after losing my son," I said, "you can take whoever." I said, "If there is a God, if there's a deity outside there, whatever it is," I said, "you can take both my legs, both my arms." I said, "And there's not one person on this planet that could look me in the eye and tell me I'm lying. I would spend every day of my existence pulling myself up mountains with my teeth if for 1 second on my final breath I got to hug my son, hold him in my arms one more time." I said, "That's how much this suffering feels to me." I said, "But I've learned to live with that, and I don't want to take anything away from everybody else because we don't." I said, "It's not up to us to judge people on how much we're suffering." I said, "It's not a competition." Do you know what I mean? And it's not a competition at all, is it? And we tend to make everything a competition in life, don't we? The only person I'm competing with is to be a better me. That's it now. I don't need to impress anybody. I just want to be a better person. I want my contributing factors in life to matter and to make a difference to me, to my family, and to other people as well."
And I'd like to share with you, John, that it is not your responsibility to defend, justify, or explain yourself to anybody.
Oh, not at all. Not at all.
So when somebody like that says something so silly, for to be generous with my choice of words, they don't know any better. If they knew better, they do better,
And that's exactly it. You're right there, Mark. They don't. Yeah, they
right?
don't.
And actually, right in the beginning of our conversation, I wanted to for you and I to talk about sort of from a peer support perspective. We talked about how people do say stupid stuff, stupid things like that. As a veteran, people will ask me, "Have you ever killed anybody?" Ooh,
Yeah.
you don't ask that one. But there's from a well-meaning place, people will say just the worst stuff, like the worst thing that you can say,
Oh yeah, yeah.
because
You sort of
because
get
they feel
used to
like
it after a little while, though.
they feel like they should say
Yeah.
something. When my brother lost a child, just at birth, and then people say, "Well, you got other children." Oh my God.
Yeah. I know that.
It's,
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean with that. I've had that
I
one
mean,
before as well. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, you got other kids. So it's not so bad. You got some spares.
They don't know. They don't understand what they're trying to say. I think is you need to be here for your other children. And do you know what? Do you not think I bloody know that? Do you know what I mean? State the obvious, like. Uh, I think they're just trying to help in some way, aren't they? And they don't realise that it's not very helpful. So it's
Yeah, and I mean, for the people that are asking themselves right now, well, what the hell do I say? How about nothing? How
yeah,
about that sounds hard? That sounds hard, and I'm here for you.
yeah.
That's it. That's all you need to say.
Keep it simple. Keep it
Is there
simple.
any
Yeah.
other words that would actually, yeah, keep
Don't
it simple.
judge. Don't judge as well. Just try not to judge. That's an important one, isn't it? We're so judgmental, aren't we? We're so judgmental, but we're not willing to judge ourselves. Most of us will not judge ourselves because we're right. We're always right as an individual based on our moral code. Judge yourself. Judge yourself before you judge anybody else. Get inside yourself and sort your own problems. Do you know what I mean? Uh,
Yeah. And even if you've gone through the same thing, it's not the same.
nah. It's different for everybody, isn't it?
Yeah. Even if you've lost another child of the same age to suicide, you can't say to John, I know how you feel. It's tempting to say that, but you can't say that because you're different people. Different people have developed differently. The relationships are different. Um, yes, you can empathize better. Like
Mm.
when we were off air, I let you know that I attempted suicide when I was young, like 12, 13, somewhere in there. And that again back in 21. And so I have a frame of reference, but I don't
Mm.
know. I can empathize better than somebody that hasn't experienced that, which is why I'm grateful that I've had those experiences, because it helps me truly empathize with those that are going through it, that are having those thoughts, right? But I don't know. Yeah, I can't know.
You can't know what's going off in each other's head. There's only yourself knows what goes off in your own head.
No,
No.
that's it. There's about 2,000 of us in the Croatian War in that rotation. And out of that 2,000, there's 2,000 different experiences.
Mm.
Some people could say, oh, it was a great tour. And other are like, well, it's the worst tour ever, which was a more common opinion. But even if you're my fire team partner and you were attached at the hip for the entire tour, you're a different person. And some of the things that I experienced, some of the more horrific things, was with the same person. It was my roommate, right? But he has different recollection. He had a different experience, even in real time when it was happening. Like we'd come back to base camp, and we would talk about what we had just went through, and we had a completely different experience with the same horrific thing. So just because you saw the same thing at the same time with the same person does not mean you had the same experience. It's not the same, if that
Makes
makes
perfect
sense.
sense. We've all got different perceptions, haven't we? As well. So we all perceive things a lot differently, don't we? Do you know what I mean? We're never going to perceive things exactly the same as the man next to you. Do you know what I mean? So it makes perfect sense, buddy. It makes perfect sense. He's going to see it through his experiences, through his entire life on the build up to that day, isn't he? As well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, that's right. So let's talk about walking for hope. And at what point in the grieving process, like when did it pop into your head that of what you wanted to do? Like what was the genesis of it? Of course, it was the death of your son, but what was the impetus? But what was like? How did it start?
I didn't want other people to have to deal with this type of level of trauma. If I'm honest with you, it was a suffering that I wouldn't want anybody to go through. And especially children would think, why? You do all the questioning, why? I thought some more things need to be in place. I had a vision of being able to raise enough sort of funding to get a plot of land, which is what we're still going through now. It's not an easy thing. It's not cheap either. And provide a bit of a safe haven for families and young people to come together and utilise this plot of land. We do over and out wild camp experiences, bushcraft, connecting with nature, reconnecting with nature. And it's still all being processed now with the campaign, all this to raise enough for it. We knew I had two friends. That I've got two friends, should I say? Sorry, who were in the same position as me, and it began with three of us walking, similar to the three dads walking, so to speak, really in the UK. If you've heard of those guys, began with three of us going out. Who were all bereaved parents, and it's not up to me to tell other people's stories. It's up to them at the end of the day. So I won't go into detail on theirs, but we're all bereaved parents of suicide, and we just enjoyed getting together and getting out in nature, and we took a lot from that, and being there for each other. Do you know what I mean? And it was going to be Stable Minds. We was talking about the charity at first. The name was Stable Minds. One of the lads ended up having to. He got a lot of complications and needed to sort of have a fresh start. So he's moved away now to a different country. Stay in touch. Absolutely lovely guy, and he seems to be doing okay and stuff. And me myself and who's now our chair of trustees, Chris as well. He we carried on with the charity as well. The ideas for it and the idea come about. I mean, the other guys, the more they need, the more invested in the family, and I feel bad sometimes because I'm not invested as direct in my immediate family, my own children. I'm looking at that bigger picture, and I question myself no end of times on should I just do all this for my family immediately. Do you know what I mean? I'm hoping that what I'm putting in place will support everyone in the grand scheme of things and work towards a bigger picture. I can't not do anything now. So the Walking for Hope, the name of it, everything, there's a lot of relevance to it, Mark. It's not just a short story. While I'm out walking, I learned to connect with nature. I learned to doing extreme challenges, pushing myself as I was contemplating my own death at the same time. I was in a very dark place. I didn't want to live, and I was quite open about letting people know that. Maybe that caused more problems for people, and they didn't understand it. Like, we need you here and things, and I was just so destructive, very destructive. And there come a point where it's like, John, you've got to sort this out. You've got to sort this out. And I took it. I had an.
Does excuse me, John? Did does Walking for Hope? Do you have programs yourself that you offer, or do you raise money for other
Yeah, we do
programs?
support group. We've got a support group weekly that we provide. I'm a trainee mountain leader, buddy. I'm a trainee mountain leader as well. What the charities put me through, so I take walking groups out. We go further into the Peak District in the UK, like your national parks, and build people up. We do local walks. We do arts and craft groups. We do quite a lot of activities while we're sort of trying to develop this, get this land in place as well. So provide a lot of activities like recreational activities and do a lot of signposting towards other places. So we're not like a crisis intervention charity or anything like that, but we sort of work. We want to collaborate and work with other charities to bring them to the surface as well, which will come about in a latest challenge that I'm doing very soon as well. To collaborate on the grand scheme of things. So we provide recreational services basically and work with families and young people in supporting them who are bereaved of suicide and provide additional sort of care for them. And it's beautiful. You see the difference that's happening. You see it there. Do you know what I mean? It's like half of the stuff I'm just going through all the evidence in. I hate that side because you like talking about people as statistics, aren't you? You have to put together all the evidence in for getting funding and stuff for charities, and it's quite overwhelming when you look at how many people we've actually supported who's come out on the walks with us and things like that. Just keeping it as a number for confidentiality, obviously, for the evidence inside it. Very overwhelming when you look at that in the grand scheme of things. So we're just putting all this together now, Mark. But the charity, the name, I walked to a place called Hope. That's where the name comes from. In the Peak District, I walked 37 miles in one day, testing how far I could walk, and then back the next day. And it became Walking for Hope. And I found a little sycamore, the little like helicopter twizzly seed things that you get that you throw in the air on the sycamore trees. You see them? No, they're like they're like little helicopters.
Yeah, 37 miles is 37 miles. Was that with the
No,
bathtub?
this was before we spoke. This was before the idea of the bathtub. I had full camping gear on. I had about 18 kilograms, which ain't too bad to be fair. I carry heavier than that normally. I had 18-kilogram backpack. There's a lot more challenges that you won't have seen with all my recent stuff. I've done a lot more challenges before that on the build up to get the charity set up, to pay for all the to getting it set up and things as well. So it's not about. I don't have to sit and brag about what I've done. I've done it because I enjoy doing it. Do you know what I mean? So there's a hell of a lot more there.
Mm-hmm. How did the idea? How did the idea of the bathtub come about? And explain that for the audience.
So literally just we was on we had a small group this day. It was a very small group, just out for a walk through a charity, and just went to a local pub at the car park where we parked up, where we started and finished. And I wanted to do a campaign. I wanted to look at a year-long campaign. We got chatting. This were back in about end of October, November time in 2023. And a friend of mine carries a fridge, a guy called Michael Copeland, known as the Fridge Man. He carries this up mountains. He's just literally done Kilimanjaro as well. So he gave me an idea, and they were like, "Oh, what can we do?" Sort of thing. What can we do? All getting our heads together. One of them said, just carry a fridge then. No, I'm not copying someone else's idea. I needed something as a visual representation. And it came up, somebody just mentioned bathtub. So then my brain got doing overtime. But, I could wear it. And we had to incorporate Deadpool because he was my son's favourite character. Me and my son loved Marvel, loved Deadpool. And I thought, want to dress as Deadpool then? Let's do it. So I'm going to dress as Deadpool. I'm going to wear this bathtub, cut an hole out in it, basic harness system. Let's put some rubber ducks on there, nice, colourful rubber ducks, and have people sponsor these ducks with the names of lost loved ones to suicide on them. Let's get a flag on there, all the smiling faces. I can carry this up mountains. So my head's doing overtime, thinking how I can carry a bathtub up mountains and things. And that's where it all began, and it just became a ludicrous idea. One day in January, I just got out in it and just walked around my hometown just to raise a bit of awareness and start doing videos on what I'm going to do.
Well, it's certainly an attention getter. I mean, Deadpool outfit and carrying a
That was the
bathtub.
idea with it. That was the whole idea with it. It's ludicrous. It gets people talking.
Yeah,
It breaks down
excellent.
barriers and gets people talking. They feel comfortable when they see somebody silly enough to
Yeah.
carry a bathtub covered in rubber ducks. Yeah, it's a ludicrous idea, and it's worked. It's got people talking. The amount of people that have actually said, and
Yeah, ludicrous means brilliant.
yeah, I'd agree with that.
That's what makes it brilliant. So, how did you get on Ryan Reynolds' radar?
So that's what I'll just say. A friend of mine called Andy Vesey. He said, "Do you know what we need to do?" He said, "Ryan owns Wrexham. He's brought Wrexham. Now, I've never been a massive football fan. I won't follow it religiously, but I'll watch it. You know what I mean? So Ryan owns Wrexham. Says, why don't we do a walk from Mansfield Town to Wrexham with you carrying the bathtub dressed as Deadpool, and do it in time for Mansfield playing Wrexham? Brilliant idea. So we've got it all going. And the Mansfield Town Football Club, their media team, did interview me and put an absolutely fantastic video together. Now, I think that was the icing on the cake. What got Ryan's attention on what we're doing, because it was a bit raw. I spoke about what I'm doing, why I'm doing it. I actually felt bad, right? Because I felt like I was backing Ryan, a celebrity, here into a corner to make him get involved in a way. Do you know what I mean? I thought, hopefully he'll be all over it. It'll be lovely. Whatever he does. All I expected, which I said in the video, was, I don't expect anything, if I'm honest. I thought it'd be lovely if I got a thumbs up from Ryan Reynolds and heard him say my boy's name. Do you know what I mean? And this was all said in the video. So we're literally the first day into the walk. This is a 140-mile walk we're doing over 7 days. And to walk over there to get to the club in time for the match. And the first day I gets home, the first day we ended up only about 10 miles past our house where the first sort of finish point was. So I didn't need to book any hotels. My wife picked us up and just stayed at home that night. And sat there, I thought I'd better update everybody on social media about how today's gone. And I don't use Twitter. It opens my Twitter up and there's a message. I'm like, who sends me a message on Twitter? And it was from Ryan. And at first it's like, I said, "Is this a joke?" I responded back. I said, "Is this someone? Is this like something like that?" I thought it was a joke. So is this for real or something? And then I noticed the blue tick, and I felt a prat. I was like, "Sorry, I'd just seen it's your actual account." And they sent me some lovely messages, and we're actually sat there. It was quite funny. We sat there, and it was, do you know when it bubbles when someone's writing? They've got the cursor sort of in the thing, haven't they? So it's like bubbling. And we were doing that for ages. And my missus is like, she's like, it's winding you up. It's just teasing you. And this quite long message come through, and it was just, what a lovely guy. What a lovely guy. The amount it did for me, what his gestures and his words did. And the whole idea was he wanted to invite me to the premiere and things as well for the film, and have me sort of done up as well. Which have you seen the video then? Have you seen the interview?
No, not this one. No.
Well, yeah, I had a full blown interview with him down in London, dressed up as Deadpool with a suit that had been in the films as well. But
I saw his post. That's how I found you. I saw Ryan's post, basically stumping for you.
But did you not see the interview, the video of the interview then?
I don't think so.
I'll send it you. There's a video that went viral. It put out, I think it got about 5.9 million views straight away, more or less, as soon as it went out. I've got people contacting me from all over the world.
Beautiful.
But no, he basically been saying all along he just wanted to shine a light on the work that I've been doing. And it's just such a genuinely lovely bloke. You know what I mean? He's doing so. When you look into what he does, I started looking into a bit more what he does.
Well, he's Canadian. Of course he's
Just
nice.
there's a lot of meaning in most stuff he does. If you have a look, isn't there? He's does so much for different charities, different people, all the time. He's a people
Mm.
person, isn't he? And it's just do you know when you're through this level of trauma? I always used to say my eyes are now open, but I think my heart and my mind has been opened, and you can see when people have true intentions as well. You can see straight through anybody that's coming on board for financial selfish gain and things like that. I can see straight through all that sort of stuff. Do you know what I mean? Or for their own hidden agendas, sort of thing. And he sees the bigger picture. He sees the bigger picture, and I think you've got. I think we've got to start looking at that bigger picture on how we're going to have a bigger impact on society and care about all of our people after we're dead and gone as well. Do you know what I mean? And I don't think there's enough on us to do that because we're so wrapped up in ourselves in the moment right now and what we're going through our own bubble, aren't we? You learn to step outside that bubble. You can actually be a part of the bigger picture yourself as well. We've all got something inside of us. As Dr. Wayne Dyer said, don't die with your music inside you. We've all got this inside of us. It's something special to stand up there and do something for the world. But we tend to sort of get just wrapped up in our own bubble quite a lot of the time, and we can confuse self care with self importance, can't we? Very easily. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, so to Ryan, I can just tell with how he's been doing things. He just seems a genuine, lovely guy. I didn't follow him like all his fans do and things like that. I just know him because my son really liked him and Deadpool, and I thought he was great. I don't sort of get sort of dead fanny with celebrities. You know what I mean? I've got my own life I'm living as well, but just amazing. The guy just what he did, what he went out his way massively. Didn't have to do anything, and just wow, yeah, just promoted it massively. Rob McElhenney getting behind us.
Yeah, you got a little bit more than a selfie out of it. That's
Yeah, yeah.
pretty amazing.
I'm not lying. I mean, I didn't know how to feel about it at first and things like that because I'd put entire July on hold because this film, the new Deadpool Wolverine film, was massive, and he ended up doing the world tour and everything, didn't he, with you and Sean,
Well,
and it was great to be a part of it. To me, he feels like he's made my son a part of the MCU as well. It was our thing. I've not been able to watch them for a long time. And if
it's
I don't want to
beautiful.
give you any spoilers if you haven't seen the film. Have you seen the film? Have you?
No,
Yeah.
I've seen it. Yeah, I
Yeah.
got to see it again though because our theater experience was horrific. We had some kids that they
Yeah.
kept getting up and leaving every
Well,
about 2 minutes.
do you know how he's got 4 children, hasn't he? He's got 4 children. He's got 3 daughters, and they had Blake and Ryan had a baby last February, I think it was, so about 18 months now. They didn't ever declare the baby's sex, and the whole fan base and everyone that follows them have been really dying to know the sex of the baby. Is he finally a boy dad? Do you know what I mean, sort of thing? And I didn't realise this at the time that it was such an hidden sort of thing. No one had told me. So it's a good job I didn't say anything because during our interview, he told me the sex of his baby. He introduced to the world the sex of his baby being a boy, Olin, and did it all as part of the sort of the promotion of the film and interviewing myself. So as he interviewed me, my story, and my son Jake to the world, when I said all I wanted to do was hear him say my boy's name, he introduced Jake to the world for me and made him a part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and he's given me that
Amazing.
step now to want to start watching the MCU because of what he's done with the Deadpool film and how he's pulled it all in, and it's given me that sort of thing that to want to get back in that, and I'm getting emotional talking about it because that was a big thing for me and Jake. and that got put on a back burner after I lost him. I didn't want to watch any Marvel films really. The rest of the family were carrying on watching them, and I couldn't do it because it was mine and his thing. So and he introduced his son to the world at the same time as he did mine. I like wow afterwards when I'd realised that's what his plans were. I just whoa, unbelievable. Yeah.
Well, sharing your story saves lives, as I've said, and Ryan amplifying your story to such a massive degree just saves all the more lives. So I'm grateful to you, and I'm certainly grateful to Ryan for amplifying your story to such a degree. As by doing that, every time you tell your story, you're lending courage. So others that are going through something similar, or anybody that can relate to your story, it puts them in a position where they think, huh, I can survive this.
Yeah.
John survived it. I can survive it. And that's really the message. I can survive, and I can heal from it, and I can even turn it into something good. And that is just so healing to so many people. And thank you. Thank you for all the work that you've done, John. It's
Thank you,
matters.
Mark. Saying the survive, we can survive it. We can do more than survive it. That's part of the title with the book as well. So I've got resilient
Exactly.
souls.
That's
Yeah.
just where it starts.
Oh yeah, definitely. You've got to start with that, haven't you? Thrive. I've learned to
That's where it
thrive in
starts.
the darkness.
Yeah.
To be fair, thriving beyond the darkness. And there's so much more we are capable of. There really is. When we learn to sort of go inside ourselves, with the human mind is capable of so much more. And I'm a big fan of David Goggins, actually. If you've ever heard David Goggins, yeah. I know some people can find him a bit harsh.
He's impossible to get as a guest, but I'd love
he's
to
one
have
of the
him.
most wanted people I think to have on for a podcast, isn't he? As well.
Yeah, he's one of the toughest guests to get, but I'm trying.
Well, good luck, buddy. Let me know if you do. I've actually sent him. I've sent him an email, Reese. I've sent it'll be his team, won't it? Anyway, I've sent an email, found out how to contact him, and sent an email just to sort of say thank you to him and all, because his mindset and what he's learned to think. As soon as somebody introduced me to him, I understood his mindset. I just understood it straight away. Do you know what I mean? And thought, wow, and it's helped me. It's helped me a hell of a lot listening to people like Goggins. We're here to inspire each other, aren't we? That's what we're here for, really, to inspire each other. When we wonder what the purpose is,
Absolutely.
every single one of us, Mark, is the purpose. Every single person on this planet is the purpose. And we dismiss each other far too easily, don't we?
Absolutely. John, please, thank you for being here with
Mark.
me today.
Thank you for having me, buddy. Thank you.
Stay on the line, John. You're listening to Operation Tango Romeo, the Trauma Recovery Podcast for veterans, first responders, and their families. Remember to share like the sugar bear, because sharing is caring.